Do you know what no one tells you when you start preparing? Some of the most important survival items you can buy may actually enroll you in a database. My name is Zach, and I have been training since 2012. Today I will tell you about 11 specific items that can make you part of the so-called blacklist of preparers. These are not conspiracy theories, but documented facts based on existing rules, reporting requirements, and surveillance systems that are already in place. In the end of this video, you will learn which purchases attract attention, why it's important, and how to strategically prepare without making yourself a target. That's why this topic is so important. We live in an era where emergency preparedness is both encouraged and controlled. The state wants you to be prepared enough not to deplete resources in a crisis, but not so much that you can act completely independently from the system. There is an invisible boundary, and certain purchases cross it. What you are about to learn is not about living in fear, but about making conscious decisions with open eyes. Let's get started. The first item is night vision and thermal optics. This is a serious step, and here's why. When you buy advanced night vision devices like PVS-14 monoculars or high-quality thermal scopes, you are not just acquiring hunting equipment. You receive technology regulated by the Arms Trade Treaty. These items are classified as defensive materials, meaning that each sale is documented, and this information can be passed to federal agencies. I am not saying that you shouldn't have night vision. I am saying that you need to understand what happens when you make such a purchase. Sellers are required to ensure that you are a U.S. citizen. Your transaction is being recorded, and in the eyes of federal agencies, you have just acquired an opportunity that gives you a significant tactical advantage in low-light conditions. This is an opportunity they have historically sought to monopolize. Consider it from their perspective. Night vision technology allows you to move, observe, and act when most people see nothing. This is the kind of power that makes someone stand out in a database. Is this legal? Certainly, in most cases. Does this indicate that you have enhanced capabilities? Yes. The main thing is to understand this compromise before pressing the buy button. The second item is high-capacity fuel storage. This surprises many. I'm not talking about keeping a few 5-gallon cans in my garage for the lawnmower. I'm talking about 55-gallon drums, 250-gallon tanks, or large stationary fuel storage systems for gasoline or diesel. The fact is that fuel represents independence in the energy sector. With a sufficient supply of fuel, you can start generators, power vehicles, operate agricultural machinery, and maintain mobility when everyone else is in trouble. In a crisis situation, when fuel is distributed by quotas or controlled, having your own reserve means you have completely circumvented their control mechanism. Purchasing large volumes of fuel and storing it requires obtaining permits in many jurisdictions. Fire inspectors are involved in this process. Rules for handling hazardous materials are applied. Environmental agencies monitor this. All this activity creates paperwork that eventually ends up at your doorstep. And so, the uncomfortable truth that I learned back in 2016 when I researched emergency powers legislation. In the context of declared emergencies, there are legal frameworks allowing for the seizure or confiscation of critically important resources, including fuel supplies. Your strategic thinking has effectively created a map for resource gathering. You thought you were acting responsibly by providing your family the means to survive a prolonged crisis, and you are right. But you have also made yourself noticeable to any agencies responsible for ensuring fuel supplies in emergencies. This is a calculated risk that must be recognized in advance. Point number 3 concerns medical supplies, but not ordinary items. I am talking about prescription antibiotics, surgical kits, advanced trauma materials, and wholesale medical equipment. A regular first aid kit does not raise suspicion. But when you start ordering things like antibiotics for fish and various surgical kits, packages of hemostatic gauze, chest bandages, and tourniquets, pattern recognition systems begin to take notice. Algorithms monitoring buyer behavior look for anomalies. Why does a civilian house need trauma materials for treating several victims? Why are you stocking up on antibiotics? Are you preparing for mass casualties? Are you planning to organize a medical facility outside the regulated healthcare system? I understand this. The logic is quite reasonable. In the conditions of a real collapse, medical assistance may become unavailable. The ability to treat serious injuries or infections can save lives. But from an observational standpoint, such shopping behavior signals that someone is preparing to act independently of the state healthcare system. This makes you interesting to certain agencies. There is an invisible line between being a responsible preparer with a good trauma kit and someone who seems to be preparing for war or societal collapse. Where exactly this line is drawn is subjective and likely varies by jurisdiction, but it exists. And crossing through it means that your purchases start generating reports. The fourth point is equipment for secure communication. I mean, encrypted radios, military-grade radio systems with encryption features, and complex radios with digital encrypted modes. In a world where every phone call, text message, and email can be monitored, the ability to communicate privately becomes a powerful tool. Ordinary radios are one thing. But when you have encryption capabilities, you create a black hole in the surveillance system. You establish the ability to coordinate actions, organize, and communicate in ways that are difficult to track. It is this ability that draws attention. Think about what happens during major emergencies. Cellular networks are overloaded or completely fail. The state becomes the primary source of information and directives. If you have a private encrypted communication network, you can act outside of this information control. You can verify what you are told. You can coordinate your actions with others. You can make independent decisions based on unbiased information. This independence threatens any regime that relies on controlling the flow of information. The sales of modern communication equipment can be tracked. Online forums discussing these topics are under surveillance. The community is self-regulated. Being aware of this reality is not paranoia, it is awareness of the situation. But before we continue, I want to share something that will make all of this more practical and accessible. I understand how overwhelming the feeling of readiness can be, especially when you are trying to figure out what to focus on and how to do it on a limited budget. I have prepared a completely free guide that explains how to turn just $50 into food supplies for 90 days in case life becomes unpredictable. I developed this guide based on years of experience and experimentation. It is designed to help you ensure food security for your family and peace of mind with a simple and proven plan. You don't need any experience, and you certainly don't need a huge budget to get started. Here's what you'll find in this free guide. First, an exact shopping list for $50 that will provide your family with food for over 90 days. I'm talking about specific brands, specific prices, everything you need to know. Secondly, 37 essential items for preparation that most people never think about when creating supplies. Item number 23 will surprise you. I also included a simple storage method suitable for both home and small apartment. You will learn to prepare emergency meals without using fuel or electricity. There is even a snack from a gas station that is perfect for barter trading, something people rarely think about. The guide will take you through the process of increasing your supplies from 1 week to 3 months with confidence, providing storage strategies to keep your supplies organized and fresh for many years, and revealing one oil that maintains its stability for a long time. All of this is completely free. The link is in the description below and in the pinned comment. Just click on it and let me know where to send your copy. Trust me, this is one of those resources you'll keep coming back to as you build your readiness base. So, let's return to the blacklist. Item number 5 is large-scale water purification and filtration systems. I'm not talking about filters like the Sawyer Mini or Life Straw for your emergency backpack. We're talking about systems capable of purifying hundreds or thousands of gallons of water. Systems that can serve an entire district or small community. Water is more important than food. You can survive for weeks without food, but only a few days without water. After any major disaster, clean water becomes the most valuable resource. A system capable of converting contaminated water into safe drinking water on a large scale is becoming critically important infrastructure. Herein lies the problem. Critical infrastructure can be nationalized, controlled, or expropriated during emergencies. When you acquire equipment for industrial filtration, you show that you are capable of being independent in water supply, not only for yourself, but for a larger group. This makes you an object of interest. In times of crisis, government agencies must know where the opportunities for water purification are, to potentially seize or control them. The logic from the government's perspective is quite clear. They need to manage resources and prevent chaos. But from your perspective, as a person striving to take responsibility for the family and perhaps help the neighbors, it feels like a punishment for your willingness. This tension exists throughout emergency management policy. Point number 6 is bulletproof vests and tactical gear. This is where it gets really interesting because a bulletproof vest is purely protective equipment. It harms no one. It simply protects the wearer. Nevertheless, in many jurisdictions, its use is becoming increasingly restricted and purchases are strictly monitored. When you buy ceramic or steel plates for a bulletproof vest, that purchase is recorded along with any firearms acquisitions. Databases interact with each other. If you also bought night vision devices, a large amount of ammunition, and secure radios, your profile is significantly enhanced. Algorithms detect a person who is ready not only for emergencies, but also for tactical operations. The bulletproof vest is a philosophical statement. It says, I believe that there may come a time when the threats to my safety will be so serious that I will need ballistic protection. This is a reasonable conclusion in certain scenarios, but it is also a line of thinking that worries the authorities. They see a person who is contemplating armed conflicts, even if you are just trying to protect yourself during civil unrest. The laws of the states on this issue vary greatly. In some places, it doesn't matter. In others, they have begun to restrict purchases or require registration. The trend is towards greater restriction rather than less, which tells you everything you need to know about how these items are perceived. Item number 7 is ammunition wholesale and reloading materials. This is probably the most well-known item on the list, but people do not always understand the full extent of the control. It's not just about quantity, but also about the patterns. Every batch of ammunition you purchase is recorded, especially if you use a credit card. Financial institutions are required to report suspicious activity in cases of unusual purchasing patterns. What is unusual? It's subjective, but the purchase of thousands of cartridges definitely falls under that definition. Algorithms track repeated bulk purchases over time. They form a profile of your ammunition stock based on your shopping behavior. The procurement of materials for reloading elevates this to a new level as they represent independence in supplying ammunition. Cartridges, powder, bullets, brass, and equipment for their assembly mean that you close the loop. You are not dependent on manufacturers or distributors of ammunition. In their eyes, you become a small ammunition manufacturer. Efforts were made to more strictly track and limit components for reloading, including proposals for serial numbering, taxation, and purchase limits. Every time there is an initiative to tighten gun control, reloading materials are mentioned as they provide a way to maintain shooting capabilities, even with restrictions on ammunition sales. If you are still watching, I see that you are serious about preparation, and I want to make sure you never miss content that can truly change the situation for you and your family. Subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is dedicated to practical training without intimidation, and I have a lot of interesting things I want to share with you. The 8th point is drones and surveillance equipment. Drones have become incredibly accessible and multifunctional in recent years. For a prepared person, a drone is a means to assess the situation. You can survey your property, check roads, identify threats from a distance, and gather information without putting yourself in danger. It is a powerful tool. However, drones are also heavily regulated and controlled. You need to register with the Federal Aviation Administration. Remote identification requirements mean that your drone must transmit its location and your location in real time during flight. Producers record flight data. Many drones upload GPS tracks and even video recordings to cloud servers. All this information is ready to be provided upon request. No-fly zones are expanding. Restrictions during emergencies will likely immediately halt civilian drone flights, citing the safety of rescuers or national security. But the true reason lies in information control. They do not want citizens to have aerial observation capabilities that could contradict official narratives or reveal what should not be disclosed. Owning a drone gives you the ability to see the truth without filters. You can see what is actually happening in your neighborhood with your own eyes, or at least with your camera, but this also creates a detailed digital footprint leading right to your door. The advantage comes with risks, and it needs to be carefully considered. Point number 9 is wholesale seeds and small agricultural equipment. This may surprise many, as the seeds look completely harmless. What threatens heirloom tomato seeds, for instance? The answer is simple: independence in food matters. By controlling food, you control people. This has been true throughout history. When you buy bags of grain weighing 22 kilograms, place large orders for heirloom seeds, acquire tractors, combine harvesters, preservation equipment, and everything needed for small-scale food production, You signal that you are building a parallel infrastructure. You strive to be able to feed yourself and others without relying on the industrial food system. In ordinary times, this is just farming. In times of crisis, it takes on a completely different meaning. There are historical precedents for the nationalization or confiscation of agricultural production in emergency situations. Your seeds, your equipment, your harvests can be declared public property or requisitioned for the good of society. These purchases are not tracked like firearms, at least for now, but traces of these operations exist. Large agricultural purchases from suppliers create records. Wholesale seed orders from large companies end up in databases. If necessary, it is possible to determine who has the ability to produce food outside the system. The greater your independence in food production, the less influence the system has over you. This makes you interesting to those who seek to maintain control over the population in times of crisis. Point number 10 is precious metals, particularly gold and silver. Real money, tangible wealth, independent of the financial system. This may be the most dangerous item on the list, as there are clear historical precedents for confiscation. Executive Order Number 610, signed on April 5, 1933, required Americans to surrender their gold in exchange for paper money at a fixed rate. Refusal meant hefty fines and potential prison time. This really happened. This is not speculation. The legal framework that allowed this then exists today. Currently, large purchases of precious metals require mandatory reporting. Dealers are required to submit reports on transactions exceeding certain thresholds. Laws against money laundering and knowing your customer mean that they track the flows of real money. They know who is building personal reserves of gold and silver. In a financial crisis, capital restrictions can be imposed overnight. Only digital currency may be introduced. Physical precious metals can be recognized as contraband or subject to forced redemption at prices set by the state. Checkpoints with metal detectors and seizures during inspections. The technologies and legal framework for this already exist. To own gold and silver is wise. It has preserved wealth for thousands of years. But be aware that you possess what the state has claimed in the past and may claim again in the future. The more you buy, especially through official channels, the more noticeable you become. Point 11 is what ties everything together, and perhaps it is the most important aspect to understand. It is not a physical object. It is information itself. Specifically, information about readiness, survival, and resistance to government intervention. The books you buy, the websites you visit, the videos you watch, the forums you participate in, all of this creates your profile. You think you are just learning and communicating with like-minded people, but every click is recorded, every purchase is logged, every download is tracked, every forum message is archived. The profile created about you is based not only on your purchases. It is formed based on your interests, what you study, who you communicate with, and what your views are. This is the deepest level of the blacklist. Not just what you have, but what you think. And this is what worries me. You may choose not to buy night vision devices to stay out of sight. You may think that purchasing ammunition is not worth the attention. But if you stop your training and research out of fear of surveillance, that is self-censorship. This allows observers to win without making any effort. In 2018, I had to make a choice. I understood that running a readiness channel made me noticeable. I knew that researching and teaching this content would attract someone's attention. But I decided that the mission was more important than invisibility. Helping people become more prepared and resilient was worth the risk of being watched. This is a personal decision that everyone must make for themselves. But do this consciously, understanding what you lose when interacting with content about preparedness in communities. So, let me summarize the 11 items on the blacklist for the prepared. Number 1, night vision devices and thermal imagers. Number 2, large capacity fuel storage. Number 3, certain medical supplies in bulk. Number 4, equipment for secure communication with encryption capabilities. Number 5, large-scale water purification systems. Number 6, armor and tactical gear. Number 7, large quantities of ammunition and reloading materials. Number 8, drones and surveillance equipment. Number 9, seeds and agricultural equipment in bulk. Number 10, precious metals like gold and silver. And number 11, information and education about preparedness itself. Each of these items makes sense individually. Together they create a painting. they form a profile, and someone is always watching. This is just the reality we live in. Now, here's what I want you to understand. It's not about fear. It's not about refusing to be ready out of concern for being noticed. It's about making strategic decisions with complete information. Some of these items may be worth visibility because they are critically important to your plans. Others may not justify the risk in your particular situation. The key point is what is called operational security. It is a military concept that is perfectly suited for preparation. Do not advertise your supplies. Do not post pictures of your supplies on social media. Do not boast to your neighbors about your supplies. Keep your capabilities a secret. The fewer people know what you have, the better. Buy strategically. Cash transactions leave less of a digital footprint than credit cards. Small purchases are less noticeable over time than large orders. Private sales leave fewer records than dealer transactions. I'm not urging you to do anything illegal. I'm just suggesting that you consider how your shopping behavior creates patterns that can be analyzed. Diversify your sources of purchases. Do not make all your purchases from one seller or on one platform. Distribute your purchases. Change your habits. Make yourself harder to profile. The most important thing is to prioritize knowledge and skills over gear. Knowledge cannot be confiscated. Skills cannot be tracked. The ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome difficulties is not recorded in any databases. A person with knowledge and skills but minimal equipment is much more dangerous in a good sense than one who has all the items on the list but doesn't know how to survive. I have been doing this since 2012 and have observed how the situation has changed. What did not matter 10 years ago now does. Observing people has become more common. Databases have been merged. Algorithms have become smarter. The trend is towards increased monitoring rather than reduction. This is the environment we are in, and we must act cautiously. But do not let this stop you. Preparation is still absolutely worth pursuing. Being prepared for emergencies, taking responsibility for your family's safety, and developing resilience and self-sufficiency are good and noble goals. You are on the right path by learning and taking action. Just do it with your eyes wide open. Understand the compromises. Make conscious decisions. And never sacrifice operational security for ego or social validation. Before finishing, if you haven't received that free guide, seriously, get it. Link in the description and pinned comment. He will help you create food supplies for 90 days, starting with just $50. This is the foundation. Everyone should start with this. First, food security. Then you can think about everything else we discussed today. The guide is completely free. It is detailed and will save you a lot of time and money, helping you avoid common mistakes. If this video was helpful to you, please like it, leave a comment below, and let us know which point from this list surprised you the most. And share this information with those interested in preparation. This is information that needs to be conveyed. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet, because I will continue to share similar content. An honest conversation about preparation without unnecessary nonsense. Practical information that you can actually use, and strategies that work in our real world, not in some fantastic collapse scenario. Remember, the goal is not to remain invisible. The main thing is to become capable, resilient, and smart in your actions. The best prepared people are not those with the most equipment. They are those who can think strategically, act decisively, and survive in any conditions. Take care of yourselves, be smart, and ready. See you next time.